There was another on-screen explosion, and Captain Orbis was gone. Macey exited Second Life and opened the various email accounts she used. Now she would have to wait and see what Captain Orbis sent her. Welcome to Behind the Bottom Line. I'm James Schofield, the creator, voice artist and prompt engineer, all in one for this podcast, which is based around stories that I originally wrote for different magazines and publishers. This is season 9 and we are now in episode 12 of a thriller set in the diamond industry called 7 Continents. So what is the story so far? Kirill and Irina are now back in England. After comparing notes about what they have uncovered with Macey's research in London, they are all now convinced that Roy Marsden, head of Eco Warriors, and Piet Hoodjink, director of the London branch of Durban Diamonds, are behind the murder of Sergei Vasilyev in Dhosk. But why would Marsden and Hoodjink be working together? And can Macey and Kirill prove it? So this might be the moment for us to join Macey as she is about to enter a parallel universe. Chapter 23 Second Life. Macey pressed enter and the computer screen in front of her dissolved into a long corridor with a door at the end of it. Written on the door in fiery letters were the words, Second Life. Before Macey had joined Capstan Consultants, she had discovered the artificial computer-animated world of Second Life. It was a strange world where the players could design their own fantasy body, business, home, partner, or nearly anything else they desired. In the real world, a player might be an overweight quality inspector in a sausage factory, but in Second Life he or she could have an avatar with Hollywood good looks, improved perhaps with a pair of tasteful butterfly wings or lion's tail. The avatars communicated either by typing or talking to each other. Macey's avatar name was Monica, and she had built herself a house there. She found she had a talent for making computer-animated objects such as guitars, furniture, or strange flying vehicles that other visitors were willing to buy from her using the Second Life currency, Linden dollars. It was, of course, no substitute for the real world, but for a period of Macey's life she had found it entertaining. She had finally stopped visiting Second Life when another avatar, called Dirk Freebot, sent her a marriage proposal. Monica said she would think about it and went offline for a considerable amount of time. Nevertheless, Macey had still kept the house she had built for Monica, so the first thing she did when she entered was to teleport herself there. It was just as she had left it, and both Monica and Macey felt a slight nostalgic twinge looking around the computer-designed living room. It was so pleasant being somewhere that didn't need cleaning on a weekly basis. Macey typed an instant message to another avatar called Captain Orbis. Then Monica sat down on the sofa, and Macey sat back in her chair and waited to see what would happen next. Captain Orbis was the avatar of a legendary computer hacker that Macey had first met in a hackers chat group. She didn't know the person's real name, or even if it was a he or a she. His skills were something that other hackers had told her about. He had never discussed them with her. Macey herself was a talented hacker, and it was this that had got her a job at Capstone Consultants when she had broken into their client database to prove that their firewall was inadequate. But Captain Orbis was in a different league. He was even rumoured to have hacked into the computers of the Chinese Communist Party in Beijing. Monica and the captain had got on well together. They had a similar sense of humour and were often amused by the other players. Macey wondered if he had changed very much since the last time she had seen him. Being such a skillful programmer, his avatar was much more sophisticated than most of the other inhabitants. He wore a long black cloak, a three-cornered hat, and had a wooden leg. The parrot image was completed by a parrot on his shoulder, which would occasionally answer questions or fly around the virtual world. It was an amazing piece of technical brilliance. Macey and Monica sat staring at the screen and the front door respectively. Would the captain answer her call and come to visit? Was he even a member of Second Life anymore? The screen suddenly exploded into smoke and flames in front of Macey's eyes, startling her so much that she jumped back in her seat and knocked over a bottle of mineral water. Swearing furiously, she tried to mop up the water from the desk while keeping one eye on the computer, watching it gradually clear to reveal a very relaxed Captain Orbis sitting next to a very surprised Monica on the sofa. "What was that, Captain? I thought I was dead," typed Macey. "Oh, you like my entrance then? I've been hoping I'd have the chance to show it to you sometime. Where have you been?" "Hiding from Freebot. Is he still out there?" "No. I told him that in real life you were a 140-kilo sumo wrestler. He was so upset at the idea he'd proposed to you that he left and has never come back. So, what does bring you back then?" "Captain, I need your real-life help. I need to look at an email account belonging to somebody else." "Boyfriend or husband cheating on you, are they? Too bad. I can't help." "No, and I'd never ask you if it wasn't of far greater importance than that. But it's about life and death in the real world, and you're the only person I know who could help." Monica explained to Orbis everything that Kirill, Irina and Macey had discovered so far. And for a long while afterwards, there was stillness on screen. Monica got up and went to look out of the window at the digital garden. She planted a hedge quickly to protect her room from the outside and the eyes of any other avatars passing by. Nobody needed to know she was talking to Captain Orbis. The parrot suddenly took off from the parrot's shoulder, flew across the room, and landed on Monica's shoulder. So intently was Macey concentrating on what was happening, it was as if she could feel the weight of the bird on her own shoulder. Monica turned to look at Orbis. "I'll send you something to one of your real-life email accounts. You can use it once only. And if Captain Orbis finds you've misused it, he'll hunt down your real-life job and destroy it." "Captain, I swear you'll never regret this, and maybe sometime I can help you." Make me a hook for my right hand, will you? I'm tired of this wooden leg. And a hook would be good for dealing with some of the ridiculous creatures in Second Life." There was another on-screen explosion, and Captain Orbis was gone. Macey exited Second Life and opened the various email accounts she used. Now she would have to wait and see what Captain Orbis sent her. Chapter 24. Setting the Trap. Kirill, wake up! Kirill opened his eyes to find Macey shaking him hard. Tatiana and Irina had left him at Macey's flat before driving down to Forest Hill, and while Macey had gone online to Second Life, he had dozed off on her sofa. "How late is it?" "Come on, Kirill, it's only 6 in the afternoon. I've got it. I've just downloaded Roy Marsden's entire private email account onto my computer. We've got work to do." Using a search engine, they organized and divided Marsden's account into different areas, and then started eliminating the parts that were irrelevant. It was a complex process that involved constantly refining the search criteria instructions. But after about 6 hours solid work, they had the answers they were looking for and had devised a trap. "Do you think it'll work?" asked Kirill. "I hope so. We'll tell Marsden we need his help at the meeting. And we'd better get Carly to come along too. I'll call her tomorrow and explain what's going on." "But will Irina be okay with her part? We really need her. It has to be someone Marsden doesn't know." Kirill nodded. "I explained it to her on the phone just now, and I think she'll be fine. She blames herself for Sergei's death. She's desperate to help. She said she'd be here at about 8 o'clock. "Good. So, shall we just send this email then? I'm exhausted." Kirill nodded. Macey clicked on send. Then she went to bed, and Kirill went back to the sofa and slept. On Monday morning, Roy Marsden went to work, feeling good. Sunday evening had been spent doing what he liked best, convincing the rich and famous that they could soothe the guilt they felt about taking private jets by donating their money and name to eco-warriors. Marsden's mixture of knowledge on environmental issues and his ability to tell exciting stories about rescuing small furry animals meant he was very successful with a certain type of celebrity. Although the previous evening had not gone quite as far as he would have liked, the lady had already written a large cheque for the cause, and he had a date with her for later in the week, which he was certain would provide a lot of entertainment. He opened his private email account and there it was, at last. The email he had been expecting from Piet for ages now, sent at midnight. The man never stopped working. It was fortunate he was flying down to South Africa at that moment, otherwise he'd have wanted a meeting. Just because he had to do business with Piet didn't mean Marsden would ever really like him. Still, this was an email Marsden had been hoping for a long time. He'd been sure Piet would eventually pay the price he wanted for this information. Poor Gilbert. Marsden didn't want to think too much about what would happen to him when this blew up. Of course, it would do that stuck-up ballerina bitch he was married to good to have something go wrong in her perfect little life for a change. When Roy thought about it, he could see he had no alternative. If he couldn't get his hands on more money, he was ruined. Nobody could have predicted such a ridiculous run of bad luck on the roulette tables in Macau during that Southeast Asian conference last year. In his position, he had an expensive lifestyle. How could he get money out of the rich and famous for eco-warriors if he didn't go to the same places as them, have the same interests? Hoodjink could give him the money for those things that Gilbert with his naive morality would never offer, not even for his good friend Roy Marsden. Still, it was a shame. Perhaps he could help Gilbert later in some way. Or perhaps not. Marsden swiveled his chair to face the wall. Behind his chair was his doctorate degree from Oxford, framed. He moved it to one side and revealed a safe, similar to the one that Gilbert Villiers had in his study in Forest Hill. He opened it and took out a thick brown envelope and spread the contents on his desk. That gullible idiot Vasilyev had collected so much dirt on 7 continents in Kazakhstan. Gilbert wouldn't know what had hit him when the newspapers and magazines were suddenly full of the story. And all just before he had to make his final presentation to the United Nations. There was no way 7 continents would get the contract in Antarctica after that. It would just fall into Piet's hands. Marsden put his head around the door to speak to Tarquin. "Tarquin, a courier is going to come round to collect something from me. Send him straight in, okay?" Marsden sat down to continue working through his other emails. Interesting. The Macey church woman wanted him to come to this meeting that Gilbert had arranged for the afternoon. Nothing to worry about there. Piet had told him that Vasilyev would not be coming. He wondered how Piet had dealt with that. Paid him some money to shut him up, probably. That was the wonderful thing about being rich, of course. It made life so much easier. Well, he would be very rich soon if things worked out as planned. It felt good already. There was a knock at the door. A tall woman in motorcycle leathers came in, her helmet still on. Attractive, but a bit fierce perhaps. She didn't look as if she would be interested in his stories about small animals. "I've come to collect a parcel for Durban Diamonds," she said. Sexy accent. Very. Central or Eastern European in some way. Marsden handed over the package. "Sign, please." She gave him a clipboard with an official-looking form with Hoodjink's name and the Piccadilly address of Durban Diamonds. Marsden scrawled a signature. He gave it back and tried his most winning smile. The courier simply scowled at him, turned on her heel, and marched out the office without another word. Yes, he thought, as he watched her from behind. Very, very attractive. But not much charm. She reminded him of somebody. Who was it? Tatiana, of course. The same bad-tempered look about her. What a pity he wouldn't see the scene in Forest Hill when she found out from the Sunday papers what her husband's company had done in Kazakhstan. He sighed and turned back to his computer and got down to writing an article about the exploitation of African farmers by British supermarkets. Not, he thought, that anybody in Britain cared very much, and least of all Roy Marsden. Gradually, Roy Marsden's evil doings are coming to light, and I hope this week's episode kept you on the edge of your seat. If it did, please tell your friends about this podcast, and please rate the story on Apple or Spotify, or better still, write a review on my website, www.behindthebottomline.com. Next week on episode 13. So, what on earth possessed Marsden to work with Hoodjink? And how is Villiers going to react when he finds his best friend has betrayed him? And let's not forget, Villiers has a date with the United Nations General Assembly to try to persuade them to let 7 continents mine for diamonds in Antarctica. Now, how is that going to go down? So, lots still to listen for next week, but maybe you can't wait that long. Perhaps you have to find out right now how this ends. Well, if that is the case, you should go and buy the ebook version of 7 Continents. You can do so by visiting my bookshop on my website, www.behindthebottomline.com. And maybe you have a friend you'd like to buy a Christmas present for. You could order the print version of 7 Continents. And if that friend likes reading, you could order a copy of some of my other books there, including Peril in Venice, a thriller full of drugs, murder and adventure, set, of course, in Venice. And also, by way of a contrast, a romantic comedy, Double Trouble. Nicholas and Timothy Aldridge, identical twins with very different lifestyles, change places and cause huge amounts of trouble before finding fortune and true love. And that is set in the advertising industry. So, until next week, take care and goodbye.